Third year Penderyn Prize. The first 2 years, I can tell you now, both books were runaway winners. Really, everyone said, no, this is the best book. It was started with Mark Lewison's book on the Beatles and John Sandwich's book in 1966. So judging it was really boring when everyone says, oh no, this is the best book. However, this year it was a lot closer. The shortlist is pretty damn good. I'll just go through what they are. You had Brooke Smith Start's autobiography or memoir, whatever they like to call it these days. The Rise, the Fall and the Rise, which goes into her childhood in the States, her rather interesting experience of being married to Mark E. Smith and playing in The Fall, and then her fashion career afterwards. You then had a book, Into the Maelstrom, which is about improvised music. It'll be fair to say this split the judges. You either loved it or you hated it. But Into the Maelstrom was by David Toop, and two of the judges thought it was the best book of the lot. But quite a few of the judges thought it was the worst book of the lot. Then you had Sylvia Patterson's book, I'm Not With a Band, about her career as a music journalist and a lot more. You then had Walls Come Tumbling Down with Daniel Rachel, which is a book of politics and music, beginning with Rock Against Racism, which was started by Eric Clapton's really vile speech in '76, and it goes up to the failure of Red Wedge in '87, was it? Or yes, '87, I think. Can anyone correct me, or am I right? It was '87. All right, it's '87. I'm saying it's '87. You then had Young Soul Rebels, which is subtitled A Personal History of Northern Soul by Stuart Cosgrove, which does exactly what it says. It's a personal memoir of him going on about Northern Soul, and it's wonderful. You then had an author who was here last year, David Hepworth, his book in 1971, which he makes a really good, convincing argument that 1971 is the best year for albums ever. I think he may be right. You then had Robbie Robertson's very wonderful autobiography, Testimony, full of great stories. One of my favourites being the Bob Dylan The Band tour in '66, when all four Beatles go to Bob's hotel to pay homage, and they have to be sent away because Bob was OD'd in the bath. And then it's a book by Hattie Collins with photographs by Olivia Rose, This Is Grime, which is really great to have a book about modern music on. Most books tend to be, as you say, 1971, Northern Soul, Robbie Robertson, everything like that. To have something that is pretty much bang on is very good. What I'm going to do now is introduce you to Stephen Davis from Penderyn, who will announce who has won. The winner will be given a cheque, and of course the prestigious honour of being the winner. Stephen.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Hope everybody's feeling good on a Sunday morning. First of all, I'd like to say a very big thank you to the judges on the Penderyn Prize. As Richard just said, the long list and indeed the short list was quite a lot of reading to do, quite a lot of deliberations to make. So we're really grateful for the hard work that all the judges put in getting us to this stage for the third year now of the Penderyn Prize. With Penderyn Distillery, I get to do a lot of great things, which are in the whisky world and some of them outside. And we all have a passion for music at Penderyn, so this is a really great project to be involved in. So thank you, Richard. Also to Hannah Corbett, who's done a lot of publicity and generating the profile of the prize over the last couple of years. And John Tregenna, our guy on our side, who's our media manager, who's helped us to pull everything together. So I think I have the right envelope. So, for the third year of the Penderyn Prize, I have great pleasure in announcing the winner. And the winner is Daniel Rachel for Walls Come Tumbling Down. As Daniel's coming to the stage, I'd just like to say we have a cheque, as well as the prestige of winning, of course, a cheque from Penderyn, but also a single cask whisky, which I hope that you'll be tempted to try in due course. So congratulations, Daniel.
I've never met Chris Christopherson before. Well, I'm absolutely thrilled to win this prize. This morning, you know, I left London and it was I had to get up at 5 o'clock, and you probably know this experience when you set an alarm clock at an unusual hour and you don't know whether the temptation is to not bother, turn it off and go back to sleep. And in many ways it's kind of symbolic of what the book is, in that I met over 100 people, and many of these people did things beyond what people normally do. Some of them were well-known pop stars or politicians, but many people were just an average person that were angry at what had happened in their society and decided to do things. And they tried to do the best they could, and sometimes they messed it up, but other times they did extraordinary things. And one of those things, as Richard just mentioned, was Eric Clapton's outburst at the Birmingham Odeon, my hometown, in 1976, when he made outrageous racist comments, which he's repeated a couple of years later in the music press, and has gone on to, or never withdraw the comments. And people reacted to that, and there was the formation of Rock Against Racism. And Rock Against Racism inspired a whole youth generation, young people who formed bands because of it. And I then followed that story through with the book, which takes you through the story of Two Tone, Jerry Dammer's creation, directly inspired by Rock Against Racism and in the image of Rock Against Racism, through to, out of those anti-establishment punk years, very much the opposite of that, which was Red Wedge, which actually carries on till 1992. 92. But the idea, there was one moment in rock and roll history where pop stars had the opportunity to try and affect change for a better society by going into the corridors of Westminster and to try and get change onto the statute book. And that story particularly is largely unknown. And it was a real thrill to uncover what people like Paul Weller and Madness and Billy Bragg did to inspire a second generation. And then I guess the bookend of the story is Eric Clapton here with his racist outbursts, and at the opposite end, and where the book ends, is Nelson Mandela on stage at Wembley with his fist aloft as a free man, where a youth generation has been flipped from the casual racism of the 70s to thinking that being anti-racist is cool. And largely, I think that turnabout in youth culture has been inspired by music and some of the greatest records ever made, and definitely records better than were made in 1971. So thank you very much for the prize. I'm absolutely thrilled. I've never won anything before, so thank you for having me.
So Daniel, what was What was in your mind when you sort of started setting out writing this book? What was your ambition for it?
Well, there's some fantastic records made in this 16-year period that are amongst the greatest records I think that have ever been recorded. You know, from reggae artists like Linton Kwesi Johnson, Steel Pulse, to the punk bands like the Sex Pistols and the Clash, the Ruts, and the two-tone bands, and then into the 80s. All these records were my initial entry into it all. But I think more than anything, it was the fact that Red Wedge in itself and Rock Against Racism had rarely ever been written about.
Right.
And yet people seem to, they know the names, but not the story. And I was keen to get underneath that history and open it out, if you like. And I did that by setting out to meet as many people as I could possibly find that were directly involved. So there's musicians, obviously, but then also the politicians, from people like Neil Kinnock and Peter Hain and Tom Watson, who was the librarian at Walworth Road, the Labour headquarters, and now he's deputy leader of the Labour Party. But also there were tens and tens of activists who ran these organisations and set them up, and these are kind of people that you might just pass on the street, and when you stop and have a chat, they told me the most extraordinary stories, and just somebody trying to do something and succeeding and bringing in people from all around the country in tens and hundreds of thousands, and so that in itself was enough to inspire me to keep going.
You're obviously a massive music fan. You're a musician yourself, yeah?
I was a musician, yeah.
So you came to this music. You knew a lot of this music?
Parts of it I knew, you kind of, there's always something about the music that you grew up with, wasn't it? But there was lots of reggae music I didn't know, or I knew certain tracks and I wanted to know more. So exploring Steel Pulse beyond Handsworth Revolution and Ku Klux Klan was amazing, or finding what just the records of Linton Kwesi Johnson. I mean, they read like newspapers, but the difference is it wasn't a newspaper that was sanitised by Fleet Street. It was a newspaper that was going directly out to black communities and telling of all the kind of experiences that youth were having against the police in the late 70s and early 80s. So you have all these incredible battles and deaths, in fact, and to hear that within music and on records was really, really exciting. But then to be able to go back and just have the pleasure of being able to listen to the beat or the specials because I'm writing a book, it's just silly. What do you have to do to work today? You have to listen to the specials album. Yes.
So, but Linton Kwesi Johnson, you got this remarkable body of work which actually then gets into the charts.
Yeah.
So you've got people who are, your classic white middle class record buying public is buying this stuff which is actually really, not dangerous, but it's really polemical, isn't it? It's really expressing something.
Yeah, well, I think that whenever any kind of an artist talks from the heart and is telling truths about their lives and their worldview, then it speaks to anybody, because we're talking about everyman emotions. And it's what I learnt when I did my previous book, Isle of Noises, about great British songwriters, in that the great songs, it seems, come from deep down in the heart. When Ray Davies pulls out a seemingly simple lyric like Autumn Almanac, or or David Watts, it's because he's really looked into himself deeply, or studied a character deeply and invested that into a lyric. And I think it's the same, and that's why if you're middle class and white, you can understand a black working class person talking about their life, because in the stories that I was told that are in Walls Come Tumbling Down, these stories resonate because they are so affecting and touching to us all.
And finally, what do you feel about the idea of a prize for music books? Obviously you won it, so it's a great idea, but No, it's absolutely magnificent, and I'm so thrilled that Penderyn are doing this, because I've been reading music books since I've been able to read. They're the absolute joy and lifeblood of being a fan of music to me, because you buy the record, and as soon as you've bought the record, you want to know the stories behind the records, and to have so many books published that largely can go, if you don't read the NME
or you don't know the areas where to find these books, then they can get lost, and there's such incredible stories. So for Penderyn to be highlighting it with an award is so important, because so many genres in other areas of literature get represented, and this has been overlooked for too long. And now, you're celebrating 3 years, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be a part of it, because it's just the promotion of music in literature.
And it came from our link with Lan and Richard Thomas and Steve, who presented the prize to you. He's a massive music fan. I play in a band. We're all music's. It's not. This is something we love, and it's great. And
it just gives us all an excuse for weekend to
whiskey and rock and roll goes very well together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you very much.
Ciao.